Good day. Imagine my surprise when I heard there was going to be an Alien first-person shooter. I was all there! Until I learned it was going to be for VR. Oh, VR, ladies and gentlemen. It has been the pipe dream for decades that we would actually be able to get inside the games. Now, VR can work. I know there's many people who really enjoy things like VR chat. I know there's many first-person shooters that can be functional. But come on, people, are you going to have this thing hanging off the end of your face for a couple hours as you try to complete a real game? Now, thankfully, as of 2025, Aliens Rogue Extraction has since been DVR'd, so you can play it on one of those 2D flat scan monitors, so you don't have to have 5 pounds of bullshit hanging off your face. So with that, let's find out if it's actually any good.
Alien Rogue Incursion Evolved Edition Part 1 is a pretty ironic name, especially since this is a 2D demake of a 3D VR game. That's a D-evolution. The 2D version of Alien Rogue Incursion was developed and published by Servius and released on September 30th of 2025 for PS5, PC, and Xbox X/S. The original VR version was released December 19th of 2024 and released only on PC and PS5, and I can only hope that the good version of Part 2 is released just as quickly. Now, you gotta keep something in mind as we go through this game. This is a 2D conversion of a 3D VR game, and in VR they had to get very creative with how the game worked so that the game could actually be playable in VR. This means that there's going to be a lot of decisions that would be bad in a real game but were unavoidable in this conversion. If you can accept that and adjust your expectations, you should have a fun time with this 2D version. What we got here is a rare breed of game. It's actually a game with gameplay and story, and you can really immerse yourself into the experience, and it's not just boring and annoying cutscenes or simplistic slop. What we have here is a first-person Metroidvania shooter with a good balance of story and gameplay. It took me about 7 hours to finish the game, and that's not too bad for 2025. You get 3 weapons, and since this game is given the Alien moniker, this is another bloody interquel, and thus takes place a bit before Aliens. Despite this, the iconic pulse rifle makes its appearance as the prototype pulse rifle that is only really differentiated from the true pulse rifle by the lack of a grenade launcher. I guess the noob tube was lost tech due to the atomic wars of 2027. The prototype pulse rifle holds the right and proper true 99 rounds, which is something that the bloody Colonial Marines game couldn't handle. The rifle is kind of garbage, and it takes a shitload of hits to take down the rather derpy xenomorphs, and you'll find yourself blowing through half a mag just to take one down. And these are explosive tip caseless rounds too. I guess they fixed the mix in the 30 years between here and Aliens. Thank you, gun nerds. Next, we got Ripley's revolver. This is a future-based revolver, but thankfully, in between Alien Isolation and this game, you've ditched the poverty Glock sights and got something better. The gun is supposed to be some kind of futuristic space polymer that you can 3D print. The ghost of Sam Colt is bawling his eyes out about that. The flavor text says that the gun has been improved to be more powerful. That's not how guns work, because you get all your ammo in situ. So, anyway, the revolver now works like a .357 Magnum revolver should work, and you can take down Xenos pretty fast with it. But sadly, speed loaders are lost tech due to the great crunch of 2025. Oh crap. The pre-boomer reload is for dramatique purposes, but seriously, get some speed loaders. Next, you got the Hand of Talos, the Big Boomer, the 12-gauge shotty. We got a pistol grip and a great boomer load of only 6 shells. The extended tubes were lost tech due to the Great Brain Slug invasion of 2099. Sadly, no one noticed that for about 20 years. The shotty works well enough and will put down a Xeno in a couple hits, but damn, that shotgun is slow to load. But then again, our hero isn't exactly Jerry Mikulek's daughter. The combat in the game has issues due to the VR limitations. For one, you only fight xenomorphs and facehuggers, and you never fight that many at one time. On normal difficulties, they move very slow, and when they attack, they'll run right up to you and say, "Rrrg," and then give you time to shoot them. But despite this fact, the game can get challenging in places, and the Xenos, despite the derp, are still really fun to fight. The facehugger is annoying, and that little bastard can screw right off. Since this is a VR game, they are not one-hit insta-kills, thank you, Esmir, but taking them down is a great challenge. Awesomely enough, you do not have a regenerative health system. Instead, you have a health bar, and you regain health by using health stems that you find in the game world. On normal, I never found myself running out of them, and most of the time I could be at full health with 3 stems in reserve. The challenge is nice and moderate. You can die if you're not trying, but the game is never a slog, and everything is balanced really bloody well, and I actually had fun. Whatever next? The Metroidvania elements are pretty good. You get the iconic welding torch from Aliens, and you use it to de-weld doors, but not to weld them. I wonder if the weld option will appear in Part 2. You get 2 different pairs of channel locks, one insulated and one non-insulated. You get the insulated ones about halfway into the game. The channel locks are used for the wire minigame, where you have to solve a little puzzle to power up doors and such. Simple and effective, and it breaks up the combat nicely. Then you got your keycard. Various doors require a certain level of clearance, and as you play through the game, you get higher and higher clearances, and you can backtrack to old areas and open previously inaccessible doors. You will find doors that say high security scanner, and you will never get high security, cause I think that's for Part 2. The game features a good degree of exploration, and you're always going to be on the hunt for more ammo and health. Since this game is very much in the survival horror camp, you cannot quick save, and instead you have to save at a panic room! I was only ever killed once on the way to a save, and I didn't lose that much progress. In addition, the game won't make you suffer through the same cutscene over and over again if you die. The game features one boss fight at the end, and it's pretty fun. Not that I would want to try that in VR, however. The game features a few fetch quests, and mainly you'll just be plugging and unplugging things, cause 3D! More on that in a bit. Originally, things that would have required a waggle on the old motion controls are now handled by a contextual button press. It's a bit silly, and sometimes I sat there waiting for the game to finish, only to realize I needed to hit a button for our dude to put a thing in a thing. Now, dildos aside, the game, while not the second coming of AVP 2, is a damn sight better than Colonial Marines, and even on par with Alien Isolation itself. So now here is the very important question. Would this game have been better in VR? And my answer to that question is, I'm not sure how you really spell that, but that really is my full opinion on the matter. On the one hand, VR might be a little more immersive, but with how much gameplay is on offer here, would you really want to play a game for 7 hours with a headset on the entire time? I'm not so sure about that, and with how imprecise VR controls are, would you really want to have to do a boss fight with those? Since this was originally supposed to be a VR game, you cannot jump, as jumping in VR is, shall we say, rather difficult. In addition, when you need to move quickly, you can use a dash move, which would have been a godsend in VR and is adequate here. Where the VR really shines is in the 3D gimmicks. And they're all throughout the game, and they're pretty neat. There's one where you have to climb over a body as it gets bursted. Then you have a scene where you get face hugged, and it's really, really cool. But it's also really cool in 2D, and the 2D controls are really bloody responsive and really well laid out. I'm not sure that VR's immersiveness really trump good controls and playability. VR is still just a pipe dream, as there's no way to really have a good one-to-one control scheme with motion controls. We're a lot closer now than we've ever been before, but I don't think VR ever trumps just a 2D flat panel monitor and a good controller. At least not yet. Maybe in the future it might. But as it is, VR is just too fatiguing. You just can't chill while playing a VR game. When playing this 2D for a live stream, me and the bros started having fun with just the gameplay mechanics. Later in the story, your android buddy loses his head, and well, we kind of started playing an impromptu game of basketball. Okay. And yes, we can play basketball with his head. I don't think something this fun would happen if you had to have a bloody headset on your head. The graphics in this game look good to me, but yeah, they're solidly in the mid-2010s level. Better than Colonial Marines in Isolation, but not too amazing. With this in mind, you gotta remember, they had to render these graphics twice, cause VR! But really though, the game's atmosphere looks pretty good, and the Xenos are scary enough and are of the James Cameron warrior strain. The human graphics look alright, and everything is nicely detailed, and the levels are thankfully large, and they at least feel sprawling. We get 60 FPS most of the time. The game loads in real time, so you can get some major drops as new areas load in. I did have a couple crashes at the desktop, but nothing too annoying. Sound is pretty good. The VA work is pretty okay, and the Xenos sound pretty okay too. When they spawn in, they will have a little hiss, but sadly they don't have the original hiss from Aliens. While the game has great visual atmosphere, the audio atmosphere is kinda middling at best and doesn't reach the heights that were seen in Alien Isolation. Music, however, is pretty good, and a lot of the tracks are not just your typical Hans Zimmer slop, and one of the best audio tracks is when the Xenos attack. Although this theme can get kind of funny when the Xenomorph's AI bugs out and they just kind of get stuck in a wall and the theme doesn't go away despite you not being attacked. Story for the game is your typical generic alien plot, but it's compelling enough to keep you interested. The game takes place in the Alien slop continuity that first saw life way back in 2014. The game takes place after Alien Isolation and stars ex-Colonial Marine Zula Hendricks. At least she has an H in her name, and she is an adequate protagonist for this game. She first saw life in the comic series Alien Defiance, written by Brian Wood. She starts out as a Colonial Marine, she fights some aliens, gets horribly injured, but recovers due to advanced technology. She teams up with a self-aware android named Davis, and they wage a war against the foul Xenomorphs. The game begins with them traveling to a planet to rescue a friend. They of course get promptly shot down, and they find out that a corporate base on the planet has been devastated by the Xenos. First, they gotta figure out what is going on, but then Zula gets overwhelmed. Despite her attempts at me-tooing her attackers, she is cocooned and then impregnated with a chestburster. Davids gets heavily damaged trying to save her, and then she uploads his brain into her palm-top computer. They then must race against time to uncover the mysteries of the base and stop the Xenomorphs. Like I said, it's pretty good. The stakes make sense. Zula is not a dick to Davis, and Davis has some personality. There aren't any other human characters to interact with, but as you go through the game, you can find written text logs, and you find out that some serious messed up stuff was afoot. This is definitely in my wheelhouse. This is my Alien. This is the gaming that I love, and man, I am so glad that this game was more than worth the wait. And I cannot recommend it enough to fans both past and present. And so, I am General Lotz, wishing you good Terminator Resistance and good RoboCop Rogue City, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.